I started this playthrough living in a tent with exactly $0 to my name, one fishing rod, and an old bicycle. In the previous episode, I managed to earn my first money, rent a field, buy a few manual tools, and harvest and sow the entire field. And today, it's time to continue this adventure. The adventure where I'm trying to go from absolutely nothing to $1 million and my very own castle. And yes, one of you in the comments guessed it perfectly. Of course I chose grass. It is a bit of an overused idea because we will be making silage, but we're going to do it in a really true-to-life way, the way this series deserves. So I skipped forward a few months until December, when the grass was ready to harvest. And then I headed to the shop for another purchase. And of course, it was a mower, and obviously a small walk behind one. As soon as I dragged it onto the field, I first mowed a bit of the roadsides for the future, because I already had a certain plan. Then I hired a worker and ran off to go fishing. This time though, I only caught 2 fish, so I decided I had to speed up my earnings. My next goal was 15,000, so I decided to take contracts. And not 1, not 2, but 3 of them, with one alone paying over 13,000. With the balance I had at that moment, it looked like absolute millions. Once I delivered the machine to the fields and hired workers to do the contracts for me, I ran off to fish again myself. I wanted to be sure I would have enough money to keep all those people on the payroll, because suddenly I had as many as 4 workers, and that could very quickly lead me straight into another bankruptcy, which, as you know, I would really like to avoid this time. Everything depended on whether I could hold out until the contract payouts came in and whether this time luck would be on my side. The fishing was exceptionally tragic, and not only because the money was disappearing from my account faster than I was earning it from selling fish, but also because I was catching some tiny, miserable specimens. So I quickly wrapped up the fishing and went back to the meadow. When I got there, it turned out that the worker mowing the grass had very little left to do, so I could immediately move on to the next step of the plan. First, however, I collected the money from 2 contracts that had finished during my little fishing vacation. I invested the cash I earned into manual rakes, which at first glance looked like a brilliant idea. Unfortunately, it very quickly turned out that this was not an ideal modification. Even though it came from the official mod hub, after taking 3 steps, I instantly bugged out, but I did not worry about it and somehow made it to the meadow. Once I got there, I discovered that although the rakes looked awful visually, technically they worked. They did their job, which was raking grass. The problem was that the whole process was much slower than I had imagined. Because of that, I quickly put them aside and headed to the shop for yet another purchase. And that purchase was my very first engine on the farm, a tractor. It looked like its best years were way behind it, but hey, it was still better than sprinting around the field like a maniac. And that's how the next stage of organizing this chaotic but increasingly promising farm begins. Besides the tractor, I also bought a forage wagon, which was actually in slightly better shape than the tractor itself. There wasn't a single speck of rust on it, but looks aren't everything, so I headed straight back to the farm to see how all of this would work in practice. When I got to the meadow, it turned out that despite my new toys looking pretty average, technically everything worked perfectly. The grass was disappearing in the blink of an eye, and my legs could finally take a break from all that running. I didn't collect all the grass though, only the side part of the field, just to clean it up and prepare it for construction. And now you're probably asking, what construction if the field isn't even yours, just leased? Well, just please don't tell Grandpa, because he might get a bit upset. Luckily, I managed to level the ground so it looks like the lease agreement technically allows it. Once the area was leveled, I built, or rather marked out the area for a silo. It's a brilliant modification. You don't have to build a massive bunker silo. You just designate a patch of land and make silage there as if there was a real structure. And the cost? Only $100. Perfect for my budget. This is how everything looked after I was done. Pretty professional, considering it was pure improvisation on someone else's field. Technically, everything worked smoothly too, because I had no trouble at all unloading grass into the silo. So it was time to collect the rest of the meadow, since while I was building, my worker had already finished mowing everything. After a short while of picking up grass, I realized it was a complete waste of time to rake with those bugged rakes. They covered almost the same working width as the forage wagon anyway, so I'd just be doing double the work. So I decided to collect everything raw. I'll admit, it took me a while, but I finally got it done. And of course, in the end, there just had to be some kind of disaster. While I was unloading the last load of grass, I got stuck and couldn't pull the forage wagon out of the silo. Classic. In this series, there always has to be some kind of catastrophe right at the end. So I came up with the idea to detach the forage wagon from the tractor and compact the grass around it properly so that the grass blocking the wheels would spread out over a larger area. The idea turned out to be brilliant. After a moment, I pulled the wagon out without any problem and could finally get back to compacting our silage so I could cover it. After compacting for quite a while, I understood why bunker silos are so popular. A huge amount of grass spilled outside my makeshift silo, and I had to pick it all up again with the forage wagon, dump it back into the middle of the marked area, and compact everything one more time. I lost a lot of time because of that, but honestly, who wouldn't expect that in this series? Once the grass was 100% compacted, it was time for the ceremonial covering. It quickly turned out I hadn't pushed everything perfectly into the middle. A lot of the material didn't get covered. Oh well, as long as it works. After covering the silo, I collected the last contract that had finished while I was working. Thanks to that, despite all the big purchases, I still ended the day with almost 15,000. After everything was done, I went to sleep so I could deal with selling in the morning. When the grass had fermented and was ready, I pulled off the plastic and, as some of you probably guessed, I used the forage wagon to load the silage. Because it was well compacted, it went quickly. For the first load to the sell point, I got almost 2,300. When I came back for the rest and picked up everything I could uncover, another problem appeared. Part of the silage simply refused to uncover. I approached it from every side, tried to load it, I even restarted the game. Nothing. I couldn't uncover it, so I couldn't load it either. I fought with it for a bit, but eventually decided it wasn't worth the time. So I went to sell what I had managed to dig out and got just over 2,000. And the remaining 6,500 liters of bugged silage. I just spawned in with a command so I could sell it. That also brought me almost 1,500. Summing up the whole sale, it was pretty mediocre considering how much work I had put into it. Even though I was already a bit mechanized at this point, the result left a lot to be desired. And on top of that, there was the bugged silage, and as a result, a broken silo that I couldn't reuse. Everything pointed to one thing. If I really want to make $1 million and build my dream castle, I need to change tactics fast. So I took some radical steps to get back onto the right track toward that goal as quickly as possible. And the best thing that could help me at that moment was, of course, contracts. I grabbed 3 of them right away. They were pretty poorly paid, but in my situation, I had no right to be picky. I hired workers for all 3 contracts, and surprisingly, this time I didn't go fishing. Instead, I ran to my machine yard and started selling everything one by one. For most of the machines, I got basically pennies because I bought them for only slightly more, so it wasn't some dramatic loss. The biggest payout came from selling the combine. Yes, I sold that too before anyone asks. What's more, I even sold the seeder, the bugged rakes, and one of the most expensive things on my entire farm. Not the tractor, but the forage wagon. After all that, I was left with just one machine, the tractor. The rest of my assets went under the hammer. Once I had cleared the farm of most of the equipment, I went back out to the fields to finish the contracts myself. I didn't want to waste money on workers when I could be doing something on my own. After completing all the jobs, I collected the payment, and as you might expect, it wasn't exactly millions. But hey, it was something. After all that, I fast-forwarded time to April, when more interesting contracts finally appeared. This time fertilizing contracts, 3 of them in total. I accepted all of them. I hired workers for 2 and did 1 myself. Fertilizing is fertilizing. It went smoothly. In the end, I didn't make a fortune because after subtracting the cost of fertilizer, the profit was pretty small. But that amount should still be more than enough to build a new strategy. And what strategy did I decide to go for? You will find out in the next episode of this series. So make sure to subscribe so you don't miss it, and see you soon.